The anime begins by showing us a story from the past where monsters attacked a village of humans to eat them, where no human was a match for them. But in the midst of that tragic night, we see how a little girl witnessed the massacre with her own eyes. Despite being unable to move from fear, she knew that it was her destiny. In a quick change of scenes, we see a young man who had mysteriously lost his sister. I don't know why I said it so cheerfully, but going back to the present, we are introduced to a world where women rule and we see how men are always in charge of cleaning the school. It is there that we meet our protagonist, Yuki Wakura, who seems to be very good at cleaning as he left the classroom sparkling clean. But when Yuki's classmates returned to class, he just looked at them with some sadness. After all, in that world, only women can be blessed with magical peaches. Yes, magical peaches. But despite this, Yuki has other talents, such as fixing school buttons extremely quickly. This is because Yuki's sister taught him in the past, something he learned the hard way. As if he didn't pay attention, Yuki would be locked up in a wrestling hold. But one of his classmates wanted to know where his sister was, but when Yuki heard these words, he simply avoided answering. As the evening approached, we see how soon our protagonist would have to get a job because he is entering adulthood and he is not a lazy person like many of us, but even so, Yuki is not sure what he wants to do in life, just like us. Without realizing it, some children near him were walking in both they and he ended up in the mist. But Yuki was too busy thinking that if he got a regular job, he would simply have a regular life. The young boy feels that he is meant for much more than that. But in the midst of so many thoughts, the thick fog ended up consuming him little by little, to the point of literally taking him to another dimension, or better known as Mato, a place where many monsters live. Although the probability is low, some humans end up in those places by mistake. But despite this, Yuki remained calm as he was sure that with his phone, he could find a solution. But his phone could only explain to him that if he found himself in Mato, he should be extremely careful with the Shikis, which are demons that inhabit such places. And if he got trapped there, it is best not to move at all until the special demon rescue team arrives. But when a gigantic Shuki appeared behind him, it was clear that he had to run away as fast as possible. Although for the young man's bad luck, his path had a large wall of rocks that he couldn't climb alone. But despite almost accepting his death little by little, we see another monster appear to rescue him. This is because a human controls it at will, who simply asked him to calm down as she would take care of eliminating all the horrendous monsters in front of them with her sword. It was not very difficult for her to defeat 3 of them on her own, although the Shuki she controlled was not as strong as her. She was left alone in battle, but it didn't even matter to her much, as her combat ability was ridiculously high. She also comforted Yuki a little, assuring him that nothing would happen to him today, as he is facing the commander of the 7th Demon Defense Squadron, Kyoka Yuzan. Seeing that the enemies were coming in large numbers, she quickly controlled one of the defeated demons to try to escape with the civilian under her care. But the other demons didn't seem to want to give up, so they started chasing them. But they would quickly be defeated by the rest of Squad Number 7, where we quickly meet Himari, Nei, and Shushu, who report that they have not been able to find any more victims in the area. Kyoka orders them to expand the search territory, and Na, with her tracking power, ends up finding a large number of Shukis heading towards them. Due to the situation they were in, the leader orders them to eliminate the Shukis, as she must protect the civilian. They quickly separate, leaving Yari with her magical machine gun protecting the leader's rear with her shots, while the rest of the team had abilities like Shushu, who could become incredibly large and strong. Seeing them with his own eyes, Yuki couldn't believe that the magical peaches could give such monstrous power. Although at that moment he was aware that they were all incredibly strong, which awakened a strong admiration for the strength of the demon defense. But after a few minutes, we see that Himari finished off the last of the monsters in the area and also found a little boy who was one of the children who entered the mist with Yuki. He had become unconscious due to the situation, so No wanted to take him to their hideout since they couldn't leave him alone. But halfway there, he woke up in distress because he didn't know where his little sister was. Going back to Yuki, who is the one that really matters, He wanted to know why he got separated from the other girls. But the leader started to reveal to him that there are 3 actions a victim must take when they end up in Mato. The first is to stay quiet and wait for rescue. The second is if a Shuki finds you, prioritize your safety and escape immediately. And the third is not to ask questions to avoid wasting time, which made it clear to Yuki that the squad leader didn't want to be bothered. However, in the middle of the way, they could hear loud screams as a little girl was about to become a victim of a Shuki. Yuki immediately recognized her as the same girl who passed by him not long ago. And although she was almost thrown into the void by a monster, the squad leader managed to save her thanks to her controlled Shuki. But the Shuki didn't last much longer as more powerful monsters kept coming, to the point where the squad leader was left alone with 2 civilians to protect still. The little girl almost ended up being eaten by one of the monsters, but Yuki tried to help as much as he could. However, they were ultimately destroyed by Kyoka, who knew she couldn't handle so many things at once. She generated a temporary barrier that would keep them safe for a few minutes, so they shouldn't panic. Although in reality, the barrier wasn't that powerful and would only withstand a couple of hits. The more Kyoka thought about it, the more she lamented her situation. After all, she had very bad luck with her peach blessing, as she was always an extremely strong woman, but her peach ability is extremely weak, something that the other girls always commented on. After all, Kyoka's dream is to be the supreme commander, in charge of all the other squads, not just the 7th. Despite all the negative comments, Kyoka didn't think about giving up on her dream, as being the supreme commander is her goal. Seeing the limited lifespan of the seal and the worried young Yuki, she wondered if her control could work on a human man, as she had never tested it on any living being other than a demon. So, the commander decided to ask the protagonist for help, as it was the fastest and safest way for everyone to survive. This request made Yuki very happy, as he would do whatever it takes to get out of that predicament. But when he heard that Kyoka would turn him into her total slave, Yuki's face froze as he didn't understand what the captain meant. Immediately, the captain asked the little girl to step back and close her eyes. When the little girl did so, the captain tried to convince the young man to be her slave, as with her power, she could improve him and quickly get out of that predicament. But Yuki was still undecided, so the captain reminded him that he said he would do anything. Although the other girls in the squad could see the situation from a distance, they didn't know why the captain was on top of the young man they rescued. But when Yuki finally accepted, Kyoka started activating her total control ability. In that split second, Yuki felt immense joy. After all, he had never touched a woman before, and he gently touched the finger that was offered to him, completing the deal. As a result, Yuki's neck ended up imprisoned, resulting in magical chains on his body that slowly transformed him into a successful slave. This shocked both the commander and her entire squad, as a simple human had become the slave of their commander. Not only that, but his power was on a completely different level than the other demons, which would be exploited by Kyoka, who asked Yuki to eliminate everything in his path. This order was carried out to the letter, as despite being outnumbered, no demon was able to stop Yuki alone, and they all ended up falling before his strength. Once the little girl was back with her brother, the Yukis began to merge into one, creating a gigantic demon who would be the next rival of a controlled Yuki and the captain of the 7th squad. They went straight into battle without fear, dodging any cheap tricks and finishing off the monster with a single blow. But such an ability could only scare the other girls, as the control of their commander is not usually so powerful. But when the control finally ended, Yuki was too scared, and although the other girls passed by him, they didn't pay attention. The captain asked them to leave them alone as they had things to discuss in private, so Kyoka congratulated him on what he had achieved and offered him to work for her as her slave, something that Yuki was not very happy about. But the captain revealed to him how her ability works by getting closer to him to kiss him, because her ability has a condition to be used, as she, being the master, is obliged to reward her slaves every time they complete a task. But Yuki couldn't believe that was the reward, so he was frozen, which the captain interpreted as not being enough, offering him more kisses. But Yuki quickly became upset, assuring her that it wasn't necessary. However, seeing the captain's face, who always used to give meat to her demon slaves, Yuki didn't know how to react, as his body moved on its own due to his ability, which demanded even more rewards. Yuki simply didn't know how to react in that moment, practically frozen on the floor while the captain rewarded him for all the work done. At the same time, we see how the little brothers had been identified and would soon be taken home. But once the reward was over, Koka revealed to the young man that her goal is to be the supreme commander, as that way she could eradicate all the demons faster, and with Yuki's help, her dream would come true much faster. But the young man assured her that he is only good at cleaning, to which the captain assured him that if he does the household chores, he would have no problem recruiting him, leaving a very excited Yuki asking to be accepted into their group, as he wants to be a real hero. It is then that the captain took the young man to her general's quarters, where Kokol would inform her companions that from now on Yuki would work as the house caretaker, something that the protagonist did not like because he wanted to fight. But Kyoka assured him that he would fight when she used her control on him, but the rest of the time he would be the house caretaker. Still, Yuki said he wants to be a member of the anti-demon force, but Kyoka reminded him that a man cannot become a member, as it is only for women, which saddened the boy, in addition to leaving him with a lot of work. But Little No wanted to cheer him up, as she would support him in everything he needs. But upon hearing that Nei is only 11 years old and that the others told him that she would be his superior, sadness returned to Yuki, as a little girl would be his superior. But anyway, the girls finished welcoming him to the 7th squad of Mato.